In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend, almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Son of Kumara. Come, Lord, now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light and thousand suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Around this fortune now. I call upon the great angels and magnets. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved Estella, beloved Estella, beloved Estella. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great angels and the seraphim of God. I call upon the sun.
Good morning and welcome. Well, it's not even mornings. It's afternoon, officially afternoon. Excuse me, if you're listening on the West Coast, it is morning. It is 10 o'clock on the West Coast. If you're listening on the East Coast, you are past your lunch and dealing with the sleep ray. And here in the middle part of America, I now reside in middle America, it is just 2 minutes after the hour, thus making it afternoon. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you are who you are, and hopefully you're becoming more of who you are with each passing moment. And if you're not, get on it. There's not much time left, as far as I can see. No, I'm kidding you. There's time, but we're dealing with some, some interesting time compression, which I'll talk about over the course of the show, as events seem to be accelerating at a fairly rapid rate. We just are on the back side of an eclipse. And the eclipse is it's pretty potent stuff. And the thing that we know about eclipses is that the energy of the eclipse can last for days and sometimes even weeks after the eclipse. And the eclipse took place over Australia. And I believe it's the western part of Australia. And what's fascinating about Australia is that it's home of one of the oldest groups of people on the planet, and that I'm specifically talking about the Aboriginal people. And so we're talking dream time. We're talking, ancient Dreamtime vortexes, gateways to other worlds. And there's a movie that came out in the 1980s, I believe it's the early 1980s, 1980, 1981. It might even come out in 79. It's called The Last Wave, and it was directed by Peter Weir, who also directed the movie Witness with Harrison Ford and some other fine films. It was during the Australian cinematic blitz here into this country. A number of Australian filmmakers. There's a lot of funding going on at that time in Australia for film coming from the government. And so what you had is a lot of filmmaking taking place in Australia and a lot of money being pumped through the film industry. So directors like Fred Schapisi and Peter Weir and George Miller, who directed Mad Max, all those guys became quite popular during that time. So the movie, The Last Wave, it's an apocalyptic film, and it stars the guy who was in The Three Musketeers, was Richard Chamberlain, and he plays a lawyer, and he has these clients who are Aboriginal clients, and they tell him sort of in a very cryptic fashion about what's taking place and what's about to take place. And he starts to have visions of what's about to take place. And what he sees is the world overcome by water. And the last wave is a reference to the final tribulation. And it's interesting to note that we just had the eclipse go over the western part of Australia, which is again the home of the Aboriginal people, the people of the Dreamtime. And if you follow my blog at all, you'll see that I've noted that Leon Panetta and Hillary Clinton were both in Western Australia yesterday. And Western Australia, I believe, is where Canberra is. And Canberra is going to be the new capital of Australia. And it will also likely be, this is according to Freeman, who's been on this show before, not this show, but one of my other shows. According to Freeman, it will be the capital of the New World Order. That's where Canberra plays a role in terms of its capital. And I believe that's where they were. Obama, by the way, has not been in the United States since the election. He's been in Southeast Asia. So he's been in fairly close proximity to the eclipse zone in Australia. There is a guy in Germany, somebody who wrote me on my website, put a comment on my website, told me that there's a guy in Germany who's predictive a serious earthquake in California for over the next 10 days as a result of the eclipse taking place in Australia, which is, of course, part of the Ring of Fire. We remember about a year ago, Australia went through some just hellacious floods. I mean, floods like I've never seen, tossing cars and trucks, tractor-trailer trucks, tossing tractor-trailer trucks around like they're toys, like they're Matchbox toys. And we are in a period where water astrologically is rising. We have Neptune going direct in Pisces. There's Chiron in Pisces. And there is Saturn just arrived in Scorpio. So we're dealing with a lot of water energy. And of course, in 2013, Jupiter moves into Cancer. So we'll have three major planets, Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn, all in water signs in 2013, which I believe is actually positive, to be honest with you. We need more motion. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world without a lot of emotional content going on. One of the things that we've seen just over the course of the last 48 hours is this just absolutely insane amount of information coming out about Petraeus, Scorpio, Paula Broadwell, Scorpio. I don't know what the Kelly sisters are, but the Kelly sisters are a piece of work. And so we're seeing more of this sort of scorpionic sex energy being brought out into the public. Now, what's really interesting is that the first wave of the Saturn and Scorpio energy, and I talked about this before in prior shows, it was the revelation of the pedophile scandals in England. And I was coming at it from the Penn State scandal, the Sandusky scandal, and talking about that when Saturn was in Libra. And I talked about how when Saturn would move into Scorpio, that it would be the torrent would be unleashed through this, that we would be really dealing with an intense amount of this information with Saturn in Scorpio. And lo and behold, almost to the day, Sandusky got sentenced when Saturn moved into Scorpio, and then of course the Savile stuff came out, and it's just been one thing after another in England with Saturn in Scorpio and pedophilia and child and sex allegations. And really, Gary Glitter got arrested. We talked about this last week on the show. Okay, so now what happens? Well, all that stuff moves to the back seat now. It doesn't move to the back seat, it moves to a side burner, or a back burner. And what are we talking about now? We're talking about Army sex scandals. We're not talking about, what's happening in England. And Darren Williams, who I'm going to talk to over the weekend, has been following this stuff in a very big way. I'll be talking to him on Saturday. I'll record that probably for next Friday's show. But, one of the things that he was mentioning is that the BBC has come out and said that all of the salacious and sordid details around the child sex scandals are to be blamed on Twitter and Facebook, mostly Twitter. So now the BBC is pointing the finger at social media, and what they're trying to reframe this as is that social media is to blame, and that they could actually clamp down on social media as a conduit for a lot of this stuff. So they're trying to point people away from the issue at hand. The issue at hand is that some nasty shit has been going on for a long time, and that what they're trying to do is reframe this in a way that the social media outlets are now the culprit. Now we're dealing with military sex scandals, and we're dealing with what looks like, to me, a coup, really. I mean, 4 to 5 generals and admirals are being stepped down or being asked or being placed on leave of absence. I mean, there's a lot going on in a relatively short period of time for what seems like garden variety, extramarital affairs. Now, Paula Broadwell has got a lot of stuff. Paula Broadwell has a lot of files at her house, according to the mainstream media. If we're to believe that she has tons of top secret information, then this becomes something very, very different. And now we're looking at perhaps maybe Paula Broadwell might be a spy. Who knows? We're still entangling this stuff. What we do know from an astrological perspective, and I got the right charts for Paula Broadwell and David Petraeus. She's a Scorpio. She's born 3 days after him. She's a rat Scorpio. She's very ambitious, and she'll stop at no end to achieve what she wants. That's a rat Scorpio. And he is a dragon Scorpio. So there is a strong connection between them from a Chinese astrological perspective, but also from a solar astrological perspective. They are separated by just a few scant degrees. And there's more going on. I talk a little bit about that on my latest post. Now, William Stickevers is supposed to call in here. Let me see if this is William. I've got 4 people in the queue, and I know who 3 of them are. Let's see who this is. Hey, William, is this you? Hello? 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 It's not coffee time. Hello? Hello? I hear your mic. Hello? Going once? Going twice? All right. Not him. He's just listening. All right. So he's supposed to be calling in. If he doesn't call in, I'm just going to wing it and go solo. So, so what's really fascinating too is, and I talked about this a little bit on my my latest post, which you can find at robertphoenix.com, is that there are 2 signs that are very much connected to spying and clandestine affairs. Scorpio is one, for the most obvious reason, because everything happens behind the scenes. It's very secretive. It's very, hidden. We're talking, life and death and poisons and cyanide pills and all that stuff, right? The other sign that's associated with spying is Gemini, because Gemini, when we look at Gemini, we look at like double agents, double identities, dual identities. Gemini represents language and things like code and secret code. So Gemini plays a very large role in this whole notion of spying. And I think it's interesting, I haven't seen the movie, but I think it's interesting that what's just hitting the box offices now. It's Skyfall. It's a James Bond film, and the whole notion of Bond is actually pretty interesting as well. There is a real James Bond, by the way. The guy wrote a book. I forget what his name is, but it's a fairly interesting book from the excerpts that I've read. He's the real James Bond. So let me do this. Let me play a piece of music really quickly here, okay? I promise it'll be a good piece of music. And I am going to try to track down William, because I just want to make sure that he knows that we are doing this. So hey, if you're on hold and you're waiting for a reading, don't go away, because it might be sooner than we expected, only because I've been hanging out here waiting for William. So let me see if I can find a piece of music that we can listen to without spending an inordinate amount of time. Hold on. How about a little shakuhachi music? All right, here's Connie Demby, Space Base. This is the Space Base mini mix. It's 2 minutes and 28 seconds. This should be enough time for me to track down William. And I'll be back just a couple of minutes. Hang in there. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. Constance Demby, Space Base mini mix. Here we go.
You have reached a non-working number at Proskauer Rose. Please check the number and dial again. You have reached a non-working number at Proskauer Rose. Please check the number and dial again.
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is this William?
Yes.
Hello? Hello? Hey, man, we're here. Good. Excellent.
Okay, let me just, I'm getting feedback.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hey, man, we're here. Good. Okay, let me just, I'm getting feedback.
Okay. All right.
Well, hey, nothing like a little Mercury Retrograde, huh?
Yeah, big time here. So how you doing?
I'm okay. I'm good. I'm great now that you're here. So let me give you a bit of a wind up.
Sure.
We're being joined by William Stickevers, who is, in my estimation, a brilliant astrologer and a real trailblazer and pioneer when it comes to using software, horary astrology, and all kinds of really interesting stuff to advance the technology of astrology. And we had William on back in the summertime, I guess it was, right? Was that when the last time you were on?
Right. It was around, I would say June?
Yeah, June.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about you and what you do. For people who missed that show, why don't we just take a quick moment in time to give people kind of a thumbnail about who you are and what type of astrology you do and specialize in?
Well, I first started out doing what we would call now psychological astrology, going right into based on pretty much the Liz Green, Carl Jung model of the psyche, and using progressions and transits, and doing things very much by hand. At the time when I started, computers were just coming online with astrology. And then later on, I started working with Alfie Lavoie of Astrological Institute of Research, and I learned from him horary and electional astrology as I was going to school at the time for computer science with the ambition of writing my own software, and working with Alfie in developing conceptual designs on black box technology, where we could verify very quickly if an astrological technique or a traditional set of rules would work. For example, I'm sure you've read many of these books about when you'll meet your significant other or when you'll fall in love, and we would test that approach by plotting those rules into the black box and then running it on a graph and comparing that graph with the historical biography of the client, or if it was someone famous, we could get that verified, and then we could find out what was actually working and not working. And that sort of developed my practice that eventually later on applied to mundane astrology, which is world astrology, events that have to do with politics, with social developments, the economy. It even applies to weather, although that's not my forte, but it applies to all things that affect us on a global basis. And so, my astrology is somewhat eclectic. I also have I've also worked with Christopher Warnock and have my own line of talismanic magic using astrological talismans, using very sophisticated electional technology based on the tradition from the Picatrix. I'm still very Jungian in my approach to doing delineation of the natal charts. I sort of fuse both realms of, technology with the tradition, and, find a middle ground. And I try and articulate that the best I can on my blog and on Facebook. And I must, with some controversy, as you know, Robert, I have a lot of friends, but I also have a lot of enemies out there in astrology who actually think what I'm doing is very disruptive towards the type of astrology that's being pontificated by many of the powers that be, mainly those astrologers who get to talk at every conference because they published some sun sign book 25 years ago and get to tell us how it's all going to turn out, even though none of those astrologers made a prediction. And none of those astrologers ever saw it coming, ever saw a crisis coming, ever saw the economic debacle fall. that occurred in 2008, and various other things that have been going on ever since then. So, my big issue here is to find what really works, what doesn't work, and try and stay out of the partisan bickering as much as I can. And like you, I'm a pursuer of the truth and finding out what's really so out there, and using technology, using tradition, using the best sources, finding the best people with the most reliable and accountable track records, which I can measure my results with. So I don't know if that explains it well, but that's sort of how I would define myself as an astrologer.
I think it explains it quite a bit. Now, you're an Aries, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, as you were talking, I was thinking about how astrologers of various signs would, develop certain models of astrology, or they would pursue a particular angle of astrology. And what was occurring to me when you were talking about the type of astrology, the vector that you've been going in, is that it's very Aries-like. It's trailblazing, it's pioneering, it's going into areas where other astrologers or more traditional astrologers would blanch at, or they would have issues with because it would be challenging, their model or their paradigm. And as a result of that, and I've known, a number of Aries, it's not uncommon for Aries to engage in conflict, right, in whatever it is that they do. And so when you say that you have enemies or people that would take umbrage to the type of work you do, to me that kind of fits along this Aries model. So, and even your name, William, is related to this.
Right.
So, hats off to you for doing that, and incarnating, having the courage to incarnate as an Aries to do this. But I'm wondering if you could touch on that too, William, about how people's relationship with astrology really is colored by. It's colored by a lot of things, but clearly the sun sign would color one's relationship with astrology.
Absolutely. This is very common when you see political elections come up. I just look at the chart of most astrologers publish their charts, or at least admit to the day of birth, and you can see that very much color the type of candidate that they're so behind, and will then will find some justification why that particular candidate will win, or the sun sign may give an indication of where they tend to be quite biased or very partisan in their approach. And, so, you have that element of it. I look at it, you see a lot of the air signs, they tend to be very into the technology. Most of my, students are air signs. So they love black boxing, developing black boxes. You see a lot of the Virgos, especially with some of my students who have a stellium of Virgos, from the mid-60s, they're very much into verifying what works and what doesn't work. That's really where I'm going with things. I want to find out what really works and what really doesn't work. And one of the things I want to say straight up front, I am still not convinced, regardless of the fact that the political astrologers out there picked Obama overwhelmingly, that their technique of just putting out a chart and putting on the transits and secondary progressions can pick a winner every time. I've seen them fail time and time again historically. I'm going back to articles all the way back to the late 50s on how almost always, whether it was the AFA or the NCGR, or any other organization, the astrologers that were predominating those eras were always picking the liberal Democratic candidate, regardless of what the facts are, regardless of what the outcome was. So you see these type of things going on where, people just keep using the same old stuff and expecting reliable results. I'm sort of fed up with that. And I'm not just talking about politics here. I'm talking about economics. I'm talking about earthquake prediction. I'm talking about a lot of things that really affect us all. And so, one of my goals is really using the black box technology to backward and forward test. And this technology, this black box technology, has been accepted and utilized and integrated very much into the financial astrology sector. You don't hear anybody complaining about black boxing a first trade chart of a stock or a commodity and running it and getting very reliable indicators of how they're going to make future trades or getting an overall strategy from that. But you do hear constant complaints from the powers that be astrologers, especially the political ones, all right, who are telling me that way of doing astrology doesn't cut it. And yet their way of doing astrology is just simply putting a round wheel out, superimposing the transits, the planets in the sky at the time on the day of the election or the day of the inauguration, and just simply, justifying it with one or two sentences, how it's all going to turn out. And then when they're not right, they completely back away. At least when I was wrong about this election, I justified why I was wrong. I explained where I came up short. I will make allowances for those corrections in any future prediction I do, and I will do future predictions, all right? And that's where astrology right now is lacking, all right? And I hold the younger astrologers responsible because they are falling into the same trap their teachers, all right? They're modeling their teachers. And, I have a real issue with this. And this is not being articulated.
I can tell. I don't come at it. Here's where I come from with this issue.
Okay.
I am not. You're much more related to the astrological circle than I am, dude. I'm an asteroid, man. I'm way out there, So, but I understand what you're talking about, and I understand your frustration with this.
Right.
And my relationship with this, and I'll share my story with you, is I got this is just days before the election. I got a Facebook message from a reader and a subscriber to my newsletter, and she told me that I needed to be careful about what I'm saying. And she said, well, you've made a lot of predictions, and you've been really wrong. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I haven't been really wrong. In fact, I've been more right than I'm wrong. But I don't get up on my soapbox and say, hey, I was right. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, that's part of the game, right? I mean, you know that.
I know that.
And nobody's freaking perfect. But we are in that business of this is what astrologers do. We make predictions, right?
Well, let me just say something about that. The top traders on Wall Street, I happen to know this for a fact because one of the top traders is one of my clients. I live in a financial district in Manhattan. I work with a lot of these people. What do you think the best track record of a trader in his best year is around 53% max? All right, 53%. If you and I and most of the other astrologers out there with good predictive reputations, good reputations for making good calls, all right, we're only right 53% of the time. We wouldn't have a radio show. We wouldn't have a blog. We wouldn't have a business. We wouldn't be making an income from this, all right? And yet the best sharpshooters on Wall Street only get it right at best in a good period, in a good cycle, 53% of the time, all right? So what does that tell you? That tells you
47% of the time.
Well, but I'm talking the best. When you have a great year, Bill Gross, he's one of the top traders on Wall Street. He's considered the bond king, and he's only getting 53.2%. All right, and by the way, Bill Gross said something that was very disturbing. I think you and I talked about this over Facebook. But one of the things is that he's the biggest bond king. He manages $1.6 trillion of assets. And what did he announce a few weeks ago? All right, it was shortly after. I think it was shortly after the second Uranus-Pluto alignment was, and he told his clients they could opt out. He's buying gold. He's buying gold. That's the plan. He's buying gold. But at any rate, if we were only right 53% of the time, no one would listen to us. No one would listen to your show. I wouldn't be having 600-700 people a day reading my blog, all right, having all these people on Facebook, click like or, write this hate email to me about how I'm going to get it all wrong next time.
Right. Well, where I was going with this story was that she did this just days before the election because she was a dyed-in-the-wool and staunch Obama supporter. And what she didn't want me to do is she didn't want me to predict that Romney was going to win because she thought that I would then influence people to vote for Romney. And I thought it was it was kind of trying to muzzle me and censor me in a very kind of covert way. I thought it was kind of disturbing, to be honest with you. And this, and I'm not saying that this is a partisan thing, but it felt to me like it was so ideological at that point that I decided not to have anything to do with this person anymore. So I guess what I'm saying is that people are going to, if you're out in front or you're taking a contrary position, then people will try to thwart you, muzzle you, criticize you based on their ideology. And I think that that's probably what you got a lot of, especially on Facebook from what I could see.
Yeah, I mean, here's the bottom line, and I'm going to say it straight out because I know a lot of these people personally up front over the years of going to conferences, reading their stuff, attending their classes, all right? They are partisan, very partisan for the Democratic Party and the liberal agenda, and that is fine, all right? That's their right. But when they start justifying, all right, their political agenda, which they outwardly deny this every time I confront them on their blogs to say, look, it's fine, you want to make a prediction, but aren't you sort of biased the way you're justifying these transits or these progressions? It doesn't add up, all right? It certainly, let me give you an example. The majority of astrologers predicted not only Obama win, all right, and I have the recordings of most of the UAC lectures of the political and mundane tracks. They predicted a 90-some-odd percent probability win for Obama. Now, as you and I know, that's not how this election turned out. And certainly this election, and all the numbers are still not in, and all the exit poll numbers are under quarantine, all right, which is a whole other issue in itself.
Right.
This election was more 53-47 in Obama's favor. And had they said that, I would not have been on the tirade that I was over the past several months saying, look, guys, this is not a slam dunk for the president. In fact, one thing a lot of people don't know, I know you know this, Robert, that Obama had a concession speech. It's on the Internet. I suggest users look it up. Romney didn't have a concession speech, all right? And why? Because his internal numbers were showing he had Ohio, he had Florida, he had North Carolina, he had he had most of the states he needed, all right, to breach through Obama's firewall, all right. And although the mathematics was in the favor of Obama, he only needed to win Nevada, Iowa, and Ohio in order to get reelected. There was still for astrologers to say 95% probability or 90% probability is just so indicative of how out of touch they are with the reality because of their partisanship, all right? And that's got to stop. We need to be more accountable to ourselves if people want to take us more seriously.
Well, I was a big Ron Paul guy for a while, and then I began to move away from Ron for a number of reasons, but I was still more than willing to see him enter into the fray just because I wanted to see something different. But I did a post on Ron Paul that was quite critical, and some of it had to do with his chart actually, and a lot of it had to do with his chart. But I also tried to draw out some things about Ron that were interesting. I mean, I look, I think if anybody's worth their salt, whether it's politics or religion or their own country or their own culture, they're able to self-examine and hopefully be honest with themselves. I mean, that's really, I think, the litmus, William.
Well, I was a big Ron Paul fan as well, and still am in many regards. In fact, I actually wrote Ron Paul in, and when I went to vote. I just wrote him in because I'm just so I just realized as long as most of the third-party presidential candidates were not on all 50 ballots, it was just it just wasn't worth it for me to make a vote for any one of them. Although I agreed with many of their positions based on the debate I heard. As you know, I voted for Obama 4 years ago. I actually gave a substantial amount of money to him in his first campaign. I could not do that again. I do not support the president, all right, based on his track record, based on his performance.
Right.
All right? Okay, and as far as Romney, I was never a big fan of Mitt. I certainly, realized that he was less than ideal candidate, but I do feel that it was certainly, the media bias was quite obvious. So, I think at this point, what we need to look at is where is the dynamics now with the country? Where are we going? What is the second term of an Obama administration going to be about? Is it going to be a continuation of the unmitigated spending, the constant subsidization of the markets and of the banks that are essentially insolvent, all right, at this point, and with out of control underemployment? It's the underemployment number. I think I said this last time. It's not the unemployment. Remember, the people on unemployment who are being listed are getting compensated by the government. It's the underemployment. It's that 45-year-old guy with a master's degree who has a house and 2 kids and a wife who now has to work at Starbucks as an assistant manager making $12 an hour with no future because he's considered over the hill now for a large corporation who's interested in hiring a 23-year-old with a master's degree and paying him less than half than what that 45-year-old was making 3 years ago. Right. That's the big issue. I believe we're heading towards social revolution, all right, for many, many reasons. I've been saying this. I know you've been alluding to that for a while, probably saying it in a much different way than I am. But I'm just not wasting time. I'm coming out and calling it like I see it. We're moving in that direction, and I think Barack Obama is going to have be managing and overseeing a nation in decline as a social and political rift becomes quite obvious to where even the mainstream media can no longer ignore it.
Yeah. We're talking with William Stickevers, the New York-based astrologer. William, we had a stationary moment with Mercury during the election, and then quickly thereafter, Mercury shifts, goes retrograde in Sagittarius, moving backwards into Scorpio. What's your sense as to how Mercury retrograde might manifest in a post-election sort of scenario?
Well, it's sort of hard to tell because that eclipse really threw everything off, right? And the new moon solar eclipse, which was shortly, within days after the Mercury retrograde, is I think it's quite explosive. I believe when Mercury goes direct, we're going to find out some things about what the real numbers were behind this election, what was really going on. How was it that the undecided voters, for example, when you have an incumbent who's getting 47, 48% or greater unapproval rating, all right, and if the challenger proves to be competent, all right, which certainly Romney was in all the polling among undecided voters, then the incumbent rule is that on the day of the election, 7 out of 10 undecideds will break for the challenger. That has always worked historically in every modern presidential election. That's why, I was very certain that in those close razor-thin swing states that Romney was polling even with the president, that he would win. What ended up happening was 3.6 out of 4% of those undecided voters swung over to the president in the last 4 hours of polling on the day of on election day. Mm-hmm. All right, that's unprecedented. No one could have called that. What made that happen? How was it that Romney was ahead all the way up until about 10:45, 10:50 in all the states he needed to win, even in the national vote. And then within minutes, between 10:50 and 11:13, it all flips for Obama, and AP calls it. Something is a little strange. And again, because we don't have the exit polls, right, because they're quarantined somewhere else, I believe in Spain, right, where all the election results were being tallied to, all right, we don't really know what really happened. So I believe that's one of the things, Mercury retrograde, all right, and the eclipse factor was certainly into playing because, you know, we know an eclipse, the effect of an eclipse always happens more intensely the week before the eclipse, not during the eclipse, but the week before. Right. So that was bleeding in. That eclipse effect was bleeding into the election results. So I think a lot of stuff is going to come up about this, voting fraud, election fraud, all that type of stuff. I believe, although we may not be able to prove it, we'll see enough smoking guns out there indicating something wasn't right about this election. That's what I'm saying. Something just wasn't right. All right? There was some fraud on some level taking place. Was it enough to ensure, was it enough to sway the election? I don't know. That may remain inconclusive.
Well, I think you're right. And it's interesting that Mercury will be in Sagittarius again when it goes direct, and the votes are being held in Spain, which is in alignment with this Sagittarian relationship with foreign countries and international law and all that stuff. So who was behind the tabulation? I'd heard that Soros was counting the votes, and then I heard that Hugo Chavez was counting the votes. Could you figure out who actually counted the votes?
I believe George Soros owns the company that is tabulating the votes in Spain. And we know George Soros is a major, major contributor to the Obama campaign. Now, does that mean, again, that the election was rigged in Obama's favor? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are some facts out there. This needs to be independently investigated and looked into. And so, I have some sneaking suspicion that there was some degree of voter fraud going on here, all right, because there's some very strange developments that occurred between 10:30 and 11:13 p.m. on November 6th.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had also read and heard on two separate accounts that there were districts or boroughs in Philadelphia where the number of votes coming from those districts far exceeded the actual population of those districts. That's just in Philadelphia alone. I read a eyewitness account of voting taking place in Wisconsin, where people were literally getting off of vans wearing Chicago Bears gear and going in with some help from a lawyer who is based in Illinois to go in and vote in Wisconsin. So these are just two incidents, and this is just chatter, and I haven't really looked into it that intensely, but I picked up on it. And if I picked up on it very casually, what else is going on out there that people aren't aware of? Right.
Again, I'm getting the data like you as it comes in, and I haven't been able to fully digest it all, and I'm not making any conclusive statements. I'm just something of a series of anomalies went on that are not common in presidential elections. Especially when you see it not just occur in one state, but occur in 5 states, including Wisconsin. And so I think, we're gonna find out more. Mercury will go direct as we get closer. Certainly, I think there'll be more revealed. There's no doubt about it, and I'm sure you and I will talk about that in the future. But I think now we have to look at a bigger issue with Saturn in Scorpio and the Uranus-Pluto in play. I think we have to look at the prospect for a massive market meltdown.
Yes.
And certainly hours before the solar eclipse, renowned investor and author Mark Faber of the Boom, Doom, and Gloom report said on CNBC Squawk Box at 7:54 a.m. yesterday that he expects stocks to lose at least 20% of their value. All right, and the fact of the matter is no matter how you cut it, there's going to be pain, substantial pain, all right? And this whole idea of the physical cliff is we need to go over that cliff to avoid the type of pain that could result in the complete collapse of society in less than 5 years. And, this comes right from a guy whose track record is impeccable, who's honest. He makes his own money. He serves no master or any favors to the mainstream media. So, how is this relevant to the eclipse? Someone asked me. Well, the fact of the matter is that the eclipse is occurring at 21 Scorpio, right? That's conjunct the serpent constellation, the fixed star Unkahai, and that eclipse is sesquiquadrating Uranus and semi-squaring Pluto, all right? And that's an extremely destructive combination, all right, that augurs really drastic change, impending breakdown, collapse of some order of some type. Bill Meridian, in his book Planetary Economic Forecasting, has pointed out historically when solar eclipses occur in the sign of Scorpio, they've correlated over and over again since 1826 with financial volatility, downward stress and pressure on the markets that often result in full-blown market panics.
Right.
So, look, we can anticipate extreme market volatility, severe and radical shifts in financial positions, followed by corrections and protracted crisis in the markets over the next several months, leading up to the Uranus-Pluto square on May 21st next year. Mm-hmm. So I am really concerned about the prospect that we're going from recession, all right, the global, the series of severe shocks to the global financial system could plunder this nation from a recession into a full-blown depression.
Yeah. And the big issue and challenge with what's happened over the course of the last 4 years is that the leadership has been beholden to, of course, Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, and the big money players that actually got them into positions of power in the first place. But not just those guys, but also the box lot stores, Home Depots, the big boys, the Walmarts. And as a result of that, they have continued to give those companies tax breaks. Well, they've done very little to give tax breaks to the small business owner. Why? Because the box lot stores and the big boys, they don't want any competition. They don't want people reinvesting in mom and pops. That ship has sailed. And unless we can begin to pump money back into the economy and actually make things, we're just going to see more of the same. And in fact, with the quote that the rich are going to get taxed, here in this country we would never openly accept, austerity terms. So they do it in kind of a backdoor fashion. Right. And force austerity on the people, through taxation, through unemployment, through underemployment. We have austerity here. People don't know that, but it's here. And it's here under very covert conditions. And what's interesting, William, almost days after the election, we're dealing with what in many instances appears to be a petty sex scandal, your garden variety affair cheating, perhaps with some information being traded back and forth, which might be sensitive, which we can talk about. But we now have at least 4 to 5 high-ranking officials, military officials, being asked to step down or resign or are stepping down here in Saturn and Scorpio. What's your take on this, especially on the heels of the election?
I think it's covering up something much deeper and much darker. I think it has very much to do with the call in Benghazi and other covert operations that were related to that, to the crisis in Syria and in Libya. I believe there is a full-blown foreign policy crisis that's being covered up as well. There's much more to this than a sex scandal. That's just, again, an old cover-up. I'm very convinced of that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a coup taking place?
inside of the Central Intelligence Agency?
Yes.
Yes, I do. In fact, what I suggest you do, Robert, is take a look at this chart of the Central Intelligence Agency, all right, and notice how Uranus-Pluto is hitting the sun right now of that agency, all right? You hit it right on the mark.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting stuff. Is there anything else, William, that you want to share with people and give them any kind of insights or any forecasts that you feel is pertinent they really need to pay attention to?
Well, I really think next year is all about the economy, soaring inflation. I know a lot of people have been saying that for years, but it's quite obvious now. I mean, even it's very clear that, you know, when you have like people like Jim Rogers, right, who says it's going to be more inflation, more money printing, more debt, more spending, all right, and you know this quantitative easing stuff, branded by many as money printing simply out of thin air. Most people don't realize the side effects of that is a weaker dollar, rising stock and commodity prices, inflated, all right, but at the same time underperforming when you subtract the inflation from that performance, and all which is stoking inflationary pressures, all right, and which is ultimately going to cause a collapse of the credit bubble, all right, and is going to be, we're going to start seeing currency wars, which we're already in now in the first stages of, and eventually a dollar collapse, which can happen between now and sometime by 2014. We don't know exactly when, but we are on that trajectory. There's no doubt about it. All right?
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree. You know, we also have witnessed here over the course of the last couple of weeks the exodus of a number of CEOs from major corporations leaving their gigs, man. I mean, this is, I posted a link on my website in the comments section, and maybe I'll post it again here, but there's a list that clearly delineates a number of power players that are stepping down and away from what they're doing, and who knows where they're going, but we know where they're not going to be, and that's running these, you know, Fortune 500 companies.
Yes, because they know earnings. Look, the Obama administration is going to have to go after corporate earnings, and that's going to put downward pressure on the markets. There's no doubt about it. He's going to have to raise taxes. They're going to have to make deep cuts. We know with Saturn and Scorpio, it's going to go both ways. And what's going to hurt most? Corporations. All right. Now, I certainly don't feel any compassion for those corporations. They've certainly been getting compensated and getting money indirectly through the fact, you know, one of the things that people don't realize is the Federal Reserve, as part of its quantitative easing strategy, has been flooding money into these financial institutions to buy up large cap stocks in order to prop up the market, which is and notice there's very little volume on the stock market. The only people really buying are institutional investors who are getting the money directly from the Fed. Mm-hmm. So the only reason we've seen ideal performance over time is not because these companies are making a lot of money, it's because they're getting subsidized indirectly. So it's very clear by the CEOs that those days are over. The quantitative easing, 4 or 5 is not looking too good.
Right.
And so I think that they're bailing out. They're taking their golden parachutes. I think this is going to all really come about between March and May. There will be a sizable correction on the markets for, because there's a lag factor. From the time a CEO leaves to the time that the corporation suffers a 5 to 6% loss on its stock is roughly about 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, this is going to have tremendous effect on the economy and, more importantly, on all your middle-class listeners. Whether you voted for Romney or Obama, the fact of the matter is neither candidate would have been a game changer that this country needs to deal with the complicated economic scenario that we're in. They did not provide any solution, and we're going to see the results of that. The fact that both parties do not provide the solutions, any set of solutions, to the problems we are now facing, and we've reached that tipping point where there is no going back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if we're still doing this in 2016, I'm writing your name in, William.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that, Robbie. I don't know if I'm up to running for office, but
you got my vote, brother. So, hey, listen, I know you're busy and you got clients and all kinds of stuff, and I just want to thank you for taking time out and spending some time with us and sharing your perspectives and some of the stuff that you're doing.
It was my pleasure, Robert, and I hope to get to talk with you in the future.
Yeah, we'll have you back on again. Okay, thank you very much, William.
Take care.
All right.
Goodbye.
That is the great William Stickevers. You can find him online and on Facebook. Check out his website. But do you really need his website? All you got to type in is William Stickevers, Stickeevers, William Stickevers. And you can find out more about his technology and what he does as an astrologer. Okay, so we've reached the top of the hour, and we have 59 minutes left in the show. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a little bit of music, and then when I come back, we're going to jump into free readings, the free mini readings. 780, Gus, he is here, 224-404-4214. Hang on. Let me get everything set up, and we'll be back, and we'll step into the future with all of you. Okay. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host, and I will be back shortly. Porcupine Tree, synesthesia, feeling good, feeling free. Stephen Wilson, lead singer, Porcupine Tree, a Scorpio. You know, I love William Stickevers, man. That's great. That was a great session. And I love the fact that an astrologer has some passion and can divest themselves of their predisposition. Look, we all have predispositions, okay? And it takes a lot of courage to move away from them. So I applaud him for doing that. All right, let's get into some readings here. Let's go to the 780 area code. Hey, thanks for waiting.
Hey, Robert, it's Jay calling from Canada. Just not looking for a reading. Just listening to the show is really interesting with your guest.
What did you think of William, Jay?
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. He was fired up today, man.
Interesting. We had a similar issue like this in our election for our premier, which is like a, how would you say it, a person who runs one of the states, governor. In one
right, yeah.
And interesting, the polls were showing that this one party was going to get it.
Yeah.
But the numbers were fudged or something like that, and then the other party won.
Look, computerized voting is a joke. Okay, it's a joke. They can flip the votes at any point along the way, and there's very little oversight in terms of the voting systems themselves. So the whole idea and notion of voting has to be re-engineered, and hanging chads or not, there's got to be a physical copy of the vote. That's it. They've got to spit it out at the end of the day that's who you voted for, not what's on the screen. So a receipt would be nice. Thank you very much. Hey, I'm going to put you back on hold, Jay. We're going to get into some readings here, okay?
Okay.
All right, see you.
Thanks.
It's our friend from Canada, Jay. Let's go to 224.
Hi, this is Jill.
Hey, Jill. Thanks for holding. You're a trooper.
Oh, no problem.
So I know that you were holding for a reading, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get to my chart here. I've got.
You read me a while back, and it was outstanding.
Okay. Well, let's.
Can I ask a specific question and see what you get after you look up my chart?
Yeah, sure. When's your birthday?
12/17/1960.
Okay, so 12/17/1960. And what time were you born, Jill?
7:45 a.m.
Okay, and where did that miracle take place?
Waukegan, Illinois. Do you want me to spell it?
No, that's okay. Let's see. Keegan. There we go. And through the magic of modern technology. In 3, 2, 1, there you are. Okay. So I have you as a. Hold on here. Let me just make sure. 12/17. This is off for whatever reason. This shows you as an Aquarius sun, which you are not. So technology.
I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah, 12/17. Let me just go. No, you're 12/17. You would be a Sagittarius.
Right, Capricorn rising, I think.
Yeah. Let me just go into the solar chart here. So 12/17/1960.
Yes.
All right. There we go. All right. So I'm looking at your. This is just a solar chart now. This is not a natal chart. Okay. So what is your question?
Okay. My question is I'm living in my parents' home because I'm a single mom. And I totally confronted my sister, my other sister I don't talk to. This sister, all the responsibilities of the house, they're very financially set. I'm a single mom. It's said in his will that all three of us are responsible for all the big things, and they're trying to tell me, like they always have my whole life, I'm responsible for everything. So therefore, I have been going round and round all morning with my sister with emails.
Mm-hmm.
So does that help? Like, maybe I need to see how my relationship with my sister, I don't know what I'm asking.
All right, here's what I would do, okay? If I were you, I would, sometimes the best choice, this comes from a good friend of mine, sometimes the best choice is to do nothing.
Right.
And when we have a Mercury retrograde, especially when it's in Scorpio, you know, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with resources. We're dealing with legacy, like, you know, parents, fathers, mothers, dowries, wills. And when you get into a Mercury retrograde, two things can happen. You can kind of get to the root of things, or you can get so bogged down in communication that you wind up kind of losing sight of what the original sort of goal is. And what I would do if I were you, based on where your Mercury is in Sagittarius, by the way,
okay,
is I would wait until Mercury goes direct to deal with any of this stuff. And when Mercury goes direct, especially when it gets around 9, 10, 11, 12 degrees, you'll be dealing with Mercury in a very direct fashion. It's in your own sign. It's moving forward. Your communication can be really clear. And like the arrow, you know, shot by the archer, very direct. You can hit bullseyes with your communication versus like a shotgun effect. And what I would do personally is I would do a lot of recon with Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. I would look at law. I'd look at, you know, what my legal standing is. I might even consult with a lawyer during Mercury in Scorpio retrograde, because Mercury in Scorpio is about what takes place behind the scenes. And when it's retrograde, you want to be able to use that time in stealth fashion. You want to understand what your position is. And when you have Mercury moving forward in Sagittarius, then you have all your information at hand. And you'll know exactly what you can do, what the law will support, you know. And a lot of times, too, I have found, Jill, that when we don't say anything or we don't do anything, the other person is incumbent upon saying or doing something.
Right.
And at that point, now you're able to glean data. You're able to understand more about their position. You know, you're able to, in a case where maybe you have to use information to your advantage.
Yes.
The person now, you know, is giving you the opportunity to tap into that and to access that. You know, you've got Jupiter at 9 degrees in Capricorn, and Pluto is almost there. It's right now. It's very, very close, almost exact your Jupiter. And, you know, when you're dealing with Pluto on Jupiter and Capricorn, the ability to access like high level information in terms of banking law, all that stuff, that's at your disposal. I mean, you can really tap into it and hit the mother lode with Pluto on your Jupiter currently. So what I would do if I were you is I would step back and just say, you know, I need to table this for a while, or maybe you don't even have to do that. Maybe you don't have to say anything at all. But I would stop communication until Mercury goes direct and do some research. You also have, by the way, Neptune in Scorpio, and Mercury will go back over your Neptune in the retrograde moment in time here. So again, that's all about, you know, going deeper. Saturn is going to be moving up on your Neptune by the end of the year. So you need to prepare for Saturn on your Neptune. And for everybody that has the Neptune in Scorpio, which is our generation, We're going to have to prepare for this Saturn on our Neptune, which is we need to become really spiritually accountable for our energy. And part of being spiritually accountable is to become, as Jesus said, wise like serpents. So you need to get wise like a serpent with Saturn coming up on your Neptune. You know, I would say to rebuild, to have trust in your life, especially with your siblings. Trust will have to be rebuilt, and that trust is a two-way affair, to be honest with you. So,
what do you get in my house of family?
I don't have your natal chart ahead of me.
Okay.
But you're a Capricorn rising, is that right?
Yes.
So your house of family would be really the 4th and the 5th houses. So let's see, that would be so your second house would be Aquarius. Your third house would be siblings. And I don't have the degree here, but since it would be in Pisces, we'd have to have a discussion around Neptune and Chiron, which would include delusion and deceitfulness, to be honest with you. And then you would have on your fourth house.
Towards me, they're like that with me, right?
Yeah, exactly. That you would have to fight through that Piscean drama and the Piscean confusion with that. Which, by the way, with Mercury retrograde Scorpio and Saturn in Scorpio in mutual reception with Pluto, you shouldn't have any problem with. By the way, you shouldn't have any problem with at all. So, and then with Uranus, with Aries in your 4th house, which is home, you've got Uranus there, probably getting very close, which would be shaking up the home. So you'd want to look at radical alternatives in terms of resources, radical reallocation of resources, and that would be part of your R&D with Mercury going backwards in Scorpio. Yeah, I would stop communicating for a while, to be honest with you.
You see me having to move?
If Uranus is moving towards your 4th house, the answer to that would be yes. But it's always with an upgrade with Uranus, especially in Aries, because it'd be something that would be more suitable for you. Again, it would be
my choice, though, right?
Yeah, and here's my sense. I would hang back and allow them and keep a record. You hate to do this shit with your siblings, but sometimes. I know. But sometimes you just have to, you have to cross that Rubicon and keep a record of the communication, especially with Mercury retrograde, because then you would probably use that communication moving forward in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be fine. You said I'm going to be fine.
You'll be okay. I mean, I think you'll be cool. But especially as Mercury moves direct, you're going to have Mercury supporting your own natal Mercury. But again, use this time to allow them to essentially tell you what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember, sometimes the best course of action is to do nothing at all, and that's what I would definitely. The only action I would take right now is to do research with Mercury retrograde Scorpio. All right.
Okay, that was excellent.
Okay, thanks, Jill, for holding, and thanks for calling the show.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, that was our friend Jill from a few months back. Let's go to the 404 area code. See who they are.
Hey, how's it going today?
Hey, hello, how are you?
I am doing wonderful, thank you.
Hey, well, thanks for calling in. What's your name?
Lolita.
Lolita, where are you calling from, Lolita?
Atlanta.
Atlanta, all right. Shout out to Atlanta, the ATL.
That's right.
Dirty Birds. Dirty Birds had a rough weekend down in the old Big Easy, huh?
Yeah, but I'm from Philly, so I'm a diehard Eagles fan, so it's all good. We're not doing too much. We're not doing great either.
No, you've got the Nick Foles era to look forward to.
I can't even go on there right now. Today's my New Year's. I gotta think positive.
All right. Well, let's start with you. Let's get into your chart, and let me go in here. Let me find another chart to deal with, because that That did not come out right last time, so I've got to, let me go back in here and start this all over again. And let's do a quick chart for you. And why don't we go right, let's go right here and redo this one. I've got so many charts that I have to edit over them. Okay, what is your birthday?
12/30/72.
Okay.
I was born 1:12 p.m. Chicago, Illinois time.
72, 1:30 p.m.
1:12 p.m.
1:12 p.m. Okay. 12 p.m. And that is Chicago. Let's see how this works. For some reason, my software got glitchy on me. Of course, it's a Mercury Retrograde.
Yep, of course.
On the last reading. Let's see what we got here. All right. Okay, I think, all right, we're in like Flint now. All right, so I've got you as a Taurus rising, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Sun in Capricorn up in there in the 9th house, and Moon right at the edge of the 6th and the 7th cusp. All right, so where do you want to go, Lolita?
I work right now for a company. So where do you see my career? Do you see me getting a new position at the career, or do you see my next transition getting into my own business? I'm not really, I would like your thoughts on that.
Well, you're a corporate person because you've got Sun in Capricorn, and you've got your true node in Capricorn and Jupiter in Capricorn. I mean, you are a Capricorn through and through. But all those planets are up there in the 9th house. So you want to be free, you know. You want to be able to ultimately, you know, pilot your own ship. And so Capricorn, how I view Capricorn is kind of like it's kind of like Maslow's a hierarchy of needs, right? I mean, you start at the base, and then you get to the top, and you reach the top of the pyramid. And the top of the pyramid, you know, the pyramid's always changing, right? So you reach the top of one position, and you know, you get to the next level, and you get to the next level. The ultimate shift from one pyramid to the other would be going from maxing out to where you are, and then starting over and doing the whole thing all over again in your own life. Pluto is right on your Sun right now. It is, so you are dealing with a very powerful time and an extremely powerful transformation and potential transition in your life. So I think for you, with Pluto on your Sun, and I'd have to spend a little bit more time with your chart. I would really like to look at you from a human design perspective, but timing is really critical with the Pluto transit. And I think what you will hopefully understand and know is that, and I just want to see where your true node is. Where is that? It is the degree is 16. Okay. Here's my take on this. Is that I think you probably have a little bit more time and a little bit more to learn where you are now, okay? And I think that it won't be without reward, meaning that you would be richly or abundantly rewarded for staying where you are now, and you would get promoted, and you would learn even more nuances. You would learn more skills. You would get those final pieces for you to really bring home, embody, and hone. Because I think that the moment for you to really jump off and do your thing is when Pluto gets closer to your true node. Because for me, that's that point of actualization. So what we want to do is we want to look at the midpoint between your Sun and the true node. So your Sun is at 9 degrees where Pluto is now. Your true node is at 16. Let's split the difference. So it's 6 degrees, 3 degrees. I would say 12 degrees. When Pluto gets to 12 degrees in Capricorn, that's the time I think you really want to think about making a jump and doing your own thing. Pluto gets to, I think, 11 or 12. Let's just get exact here. I don't since we're in the business, hopefully, of exactitude. Let's go to 2013. I know Pluto gets to 11 because it touches my Saturn in 2013. So Pluto just gets to 11 degrees in 2013. It goes retrograde. It goes back to 9. It hits your sun, and then it goes to 11 again. So we're talking 12, 13 degrees is right at the beginning of 2014. So you may want to pay attention to when Pluto gets to 11 degrees, just if you feel like you're getting an offer that is really supporting your ability, like say somebody says, hey, I want to back you, I want to invest in you, that really takes place in February of 2013. At the very least, you want to have your eyes and ears open in February of 2013. February through April, I think, is a very interesting time for you. In April, Pluto moves backwards and goes retrograde at 11 degrees, and anything that would come through during that time, I would really take my time and really look at it. I wouldn't jump at it. I'd be much more circumspect during the Pluto retrograde, and then Pluto goes direct again in September 2013. Then it moves back up to 11 degrees almost a year from now. So the window that you would have if you were going to make some kind of a jump would be from the 24th of February to the 12th of April. And then after that, I think that anything that comes through, you'd really want to be quite careful with. But ultimately, my sense would be that midpoint, which would be 12 degrees, which takes place at the beginning of 2014. If you have to stay where you are now, I wouldn't sweat it. I think it's actually a good place to be. Jupiter is retrograde in your first house, so I wouldn't make any moves with Jupiter retrograde in your first house. Again, I'd still wait for Jupiter to move forward, which it does in the spring of 2013. So I would say for now, be where you are, be cool. You've got Saturn in your sixth house, and it's shifted from Libra to Scorpio. So you'll be going deeper with your work. You'll be going deeper with your purpose and why you're here. And then in 2013, you're dealing with a Saturn Moon conjunction. And that would be, one of the things that you also in terms of timing want to watch out for, like for instance, if you were to prematurely leave your gig and start off on your own in 2013 when you're going through the Saturn Moon conjunction, that's very intense energy, and you'll be dealing with some issues around, deep issues around emotions, deep issues around sexuality, and even dealing with your mother or maternal issues at that time. And that could actually really, take away from, whatever it is you want to do with your career. You're very career-oriented with all that stuff in Capricorn. You would actually want to wait, I think, until Saturn moves into your seventh house, and then you can focus on relationship. It's off your moon. You've dealt with emotional drama. You've dealt with needy people. You've dealt with maternal issues. You've dealt with some deep-seated sexual and emotional issues. And then you can, then dealing with the relationships at that point is a lot easier. So I'd actually also, be very cautious and watch the timing in terms of doing something like that until Saturn moves off your moon. And that really occurs in a very clear way in 2013 at 17 degrees. And so we look at that, and that takes place in the latter part of 2013, getting into December of next year when Saturn finally moves off your moon. So you want to keep that in perspective as well.
Okay, well that does sound right because I'm in sales, so my job is not guaranteed every day. So that's what I was asking. I wasn't sure if I want to get promoted, but my business plan is already set into motion as of last year. Yeah. I'm just waiting for some legalities to work out, and if I'm not there in January, I know that my financial backup plan for my business will be there and to have doors open by summer because my business is a summer business. So that's right. So you're on point with that.
Yeah. It's that window where it's at 11 degrees because then at that point Pluto's moved off your sun and is moving towards your true node. You're going to be a success no matter what. You're wired for success. with Sun and True Node and Jupiter conjunct, pretty much all of them in the 9th house. In fact, they're all conjunct. And in fact, at some point, you're going to be teaching people how to be a success. Ultimately, that's where you're going.
That's funny because I do that every Saturday. I kind of teach how to manifest on Blog Talk actually too.
There you go. So what's your show?
I have it's called Psychic Talk Fair on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Saturday, 10 o'clock. So, check her out and see what Lolita has for her. So thank you for calling in.
Thank you. It makes a lot more sense and to me. And so knowing in my mind that I would like to have everything, even though I've everything started, the only thing missing in my business is the finance. So February, March makes sense to me because that's when you start preparing and having doors open by April. So it does make sense.
Yeah, and you also want to pay attention to what William talked about with the Uranus-Pluto square, which does take place in May as well. So I think you probably want to get April. I think is your window. You want to get it. If you're going to do it, it's between January and April.
Okay, you got it.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, Lolita.
Bye. Namaste. Bye-bye.
All right. Lolita from the ATL. All right. Let's go to 513. We got 26 minutes left here. Let's see if we can do some quick readings and get everybody happy and satisfied. Hey, thanks for calling in. Hi there.
Hi, Robert. This is Catherine. I'm calling from Oxford, Ohio.
Oh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I just find you very interesting.
Oh, well, that's that's nice of you. It's an interesting path from, or it's a fascinating path from weird to interesting. And I think I've moved into the interesting zone and away from the weird. I think the times are catching up with me a little bit, so that's great. What can we do for you today?
Well, I just wanted to see what you see in sort of my family and where I'm going in my life. My birthday is 12/12/1992.
All right, we got a lot of Sag and Capricorn.
I know. And I was born at 6:25 p.m.
12/12. That was 1992?
Yes, sir.
You are a youngin'. And what time?
Yeah, 6:25 p.m.
6:25 p.m. All right, we got that. And where was that?
In Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Cincinnati, Ohio. There it is, right there. All right, just on the border of the great state of Kentucky. All right, here we go. I see your chart. You are 21 degrees Sagittarius, and you've got a really interesting trine between your moon and your Mercury. Moon at 0 degrees Leo and Mercury at 0 degrees Sagittarius. Fascinating. I've never seen that trine before. And then Venus Aquarius at 4 degrees, and then you've got that very sweet Cancer rising right there on your ascendant, and then Mars at the tail end of your first house, snuggling up against your moon. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Family and what else?
I was just saying my career, and I'm a sophomore in college. I still have 2 more years. I'm not sure where I'm going to go right yet with my life, or if I see a move or anything in the family field or maternal on my side. What do you see happening, or can you read much for me?
Yeah. So you've got your sun is in Sagittarius, and then your true node is also in Sagittarius, and they are exactly conjunct. I mean, I've never seen that before in terms of a true node, and I've seen like 1 or 2 degrees, but not quite conjunct. So the true node is, as I've described it in the show, is it's the one part of the chart where you really want to go after. That's the bullseye in this lifetime. It's the true north of the chart, and if you go to that place and you follow it, you'll be rewarded by your efforts. So for you, it's also connected not only to your purpose and what you're here to do in this lifetime, it's also connected to who you are with your son, because they're so closely connected. So who you are and what you do are synonymous. They're one and the same. And so you, as a person, you would become known for embodying whatever it is that you do in this lifetime. You know, Sagittarius represents law. It represents philosophy. It represents religion. And somebody that has 0 degrees, Sagittarius Mercury, Sagittarius Sun, and true node in Sagittarius, if you decided that you ever wanted to teach and be a professor, or if you wanted to actually get into law, or even something like the ministry, which would be religious law, you'd be very, very good at it. And you're here to help other people, because all the Sagittarius energy, for the most part, is in your 6th house, which is the house of purpose and service and dharma. So whatever you do in this lifetime, you have to help other people. And Sagittarius likes to inspire and uplift other people as well. So part of what you're also here to do is to give people a message of hope. And that can happen through a myriad of channels. But again, law, philosophy, religion, and teaching are the conduits through which Sagittarius really does its best work. So whatever you do in terms of your career, it has to involve kind of the advocacy of helping people and serving people in a way that is going to provide them with a model of inspiration and hope. And you have a great capacity to channel that. Sagittarius is the most optimistic sign in the zodiac. And when I look at your 10th house, which is like the house of career, the 6th house is the house of purpose and service, and where we discover our talents and abilities to a large extent. Your 10th house is ruled by Pisces. And it's funny, I did a reading for a woman today, earlier on today, and one of the things that I picked up on with 10th house Pisces, even though her chart was different than yours, was not only inspiring people, but helping people that are far less fortunate in terms of their like physical capacities, like people that are disabled. Pisces is the sign of the lame and the people that have issues around like autism or Down syndrome, things like that, or people that have challenges, physical challenges with walking. I mean, traditionally it's like the lame, the addicted, the insane, things like that. But we've moved away from a lot of those stereotypical views and see these people from a much more holistic perspective. So, but with Pisces there again on the 10th house, you are here to help people kind of understand, or help people that have those conditions, and to bring compassion and to bring love and support and hope to people that are a lot less fortunate. Now, right now, Neptune is in your 9th house, which is the house of school, the house of college. And, with Sun and true node in Sagittarius, you do quite well in a university setting. And what you want to do with Neptune and, of course, Chiron in the 9th house is you really kind of want to go deep with your schooling. And one of the things that I would recommend for you is to explore the nature of the university. Where did the university come from? It came out of the cathedral schools during the Middle Ages, where the monastic traditions were able to hold things like Euclidean geometry and Latin and all that stuff, while the rest of Europe was involved in these very barbaric conquests. They held the seeds of light for the ages to come. And the Enlightenment eventually comes out of those cathedral schools, and that's where the university system comes from. And if you get into that and you explore that and you learn about sort of the roots of where you are, some very interesting things will happen for you, because we're talking about not just what you're going to be learning in terms of school, but also learning in terms of that tradition. You might even begin to see yourself as being a person that might have been part of the monastic schools during that time, and maybe not have been given a fair opportunity or a fair shake during those times. So maybe you didn't receive the kind of knowledge that other people did, if you believe in past lives, which I do. And now is your time to be able to really soak that up. So I think not just studying, but studying where the university system came from would be a very good thing for you. In terms of family, you've got your fourth house is dedicated to the sign of Libra, which is home, and the fifth house, which is children and offspring. You've got Saturn now moving into your fifth house. So one of the things that I would share with you is if you have a boyfriend, if you decide that you are going to have sexual relations with your boyfriend, that you take precautions, because what you don't want when you're going to school is an unwanted pregnancy. And sometimes with Saturn moving into the fifth house, you can deal with issues like that. So you want to be careful with Saturn now in your fifth house at was it 2 degrees, 3 degrees. And then Saturn will move up and hit your Pluto, but it won't hit your Pluto until 2014. And when that happens, I think for you, things are going to get very interesting, because I would not be surprised if you fall head over heels in love during that Saturn and Pluto. And it might come with a little bit of drama. And somebody may even propose to you during that time. So, you would definitely want to use, good judgment. But there's a major transformation in terms of your heart in 2014 when Saturn hits your Pluto. And, based on your chart here, I think you've got some really nice aspects. I love the Moon Mercury trine with Leo and Sag. It gives you a really intuitive sense in terms of how to work with people, how to deal with people. You're very kind, you're very compassionate, and you have a lot of wisdom. You have a lot of wisdom for your age, by the way. And as you get older, more and more of that wisdom is going to start coming out for sure. So how does that sound?
Oh, that is awesome. I haven't decided if I'm going to stay here in Oxford or move more south by where my mother is.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know. I'm currently in medical research, so you pretty much has nailed that one. But that
would be great in terms of helping people. You know what I mean? Especially with that Pisces capacity up on the midheaven.
Okay, that's wonderful. So you don't see me. You wouldn't see me. Actually, you would think I should finish my schooling up north here.
Yeah, I do. I do. And the reason why is because Saturn has moved on. If you were going to move back home, it would be Saturn in your fourth house. But Saturn's moved on to your fifth house now. And I think with Saturn in your fifth house, there are emotional issues, and not in a bad way, by the way. When I say emotional, people think it's emotional is bad. There are emotional issues that you need to explore and discover with Saturn in your fifth house.
Okay. Could that have to do with my parents' divorce?
You might have to because of your parents' divorce. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, that, again, as an astrologer, I don't see it.
Okay.
I mean, that's a choice you would have to make as an individual. I mean, as an astrologer, your Saturn is moving away from your home.
Okay. So I'm making my own way. That's great.
Absolutely. It's moving away from your fourth house. And because it's the fifth house, and the fifth house represents children, right?
Yes.
You're having to kind of, in some ways, leave your childhood behind. And the fifth house, in your case, is ruled by Scorpio, so it's fixed, and it's about decisions. That doesn't mean you can't go back there and spend time or support them or support your mom, but your Saturn's moving away from home.
Did you see me even moving further away from my mother?
Not necessarily, no. I just see you as at least being where you are now, and maybe that's moving away emotionally from your mother, but I don't see it necessarily moving physically unless your mother moves. It moves further away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate it, and I thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you for calling in, and you have a great day. Okay.
Thank you. You also.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's do a quick 214 and then see if we can squeeze in a loaded Gussie. Hi, thanks for calling in, and then thank you for waiting.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad I made it because my call dropped earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw, yeah, I remember the 214, so thanks for hanging in there. What's your name?
My name is Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
And my birthday is 10/29/1986. And my birth certificate says 252, but I think that it's supposed to be 152. So I use Aquarius rising.
1986. So is that the 152?
Yes, I use 152 p.m.
All right. If I had Rod here, he could ask you 3 questions, which would nail it. I could probably do it too. Where were you born?
In Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth. That's just up the road from where I am now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm in Austin now.
Oh, okay, cool. Keep Austin weird.
Trust me, I'm doing my part. All right, so there you go. Got you Aquarius on the tip. And there's your sun up there, 9th house, hanging out, having a Scorpio party in the 9th house. All right, so where do we want to go?
Well, basically, I've just jumped around a lot and from different jobs, and now I'm somewhere where I'm somewhat comfortable, and I was just wondering if I should pretty much stay here or look for a career in another field, and if so, like what field?
Right. Okay. So with your sun in the 9th house, the thing with the 9th house is that people can get a little restless. Your sun especially because of the square with Mars, so you would jump around a lot, right? But Saturn is coming to crash that Scorpio party. And when it hits your sun shortly, within weeks, you don't want to move around. You want to be where you are, because Saturn on your sun and then Saturn hitting your Pluto shortly thereafter is quite intense and augurs a major life change. So what you want to do is you don't want to be dancing around while you're undergoing a major life change. You want to be rooted. You want to be solid, and kind of allow the universe to have the first move. And with Saturn coming up on your sun and Saturn coming up on Pluto, you need to be ready to listen to God / the universe, because there is direction coming in your life. Sometimes what happens is, and this happened to me when Saturn crossed my Pluto, I didn't leave my job left me. And that could very well be a possibility, by the way, when Saturn crosses your sun and Saturn crosses your Pluto, in which case you would then find another job. But it's not you leaving the job. It would be the job leaving you. So, but don't be preemptive, because the universe with Saturn on your sun and Saturn on Pluto always has the first move, okay, always. Now, if you don't leave your job and the job doesn't leave you, well, then what? Well, then you get to go deeper. Then you're being given an opportunity. Sometimes in a situation like this, somebody can get fired or leave a job, and all of a sudden they're like, you're off the bench, come over here, you're the one that gets to experience this. This happened to me one time when I was back in the field of publishing. I was hanging out, and I was an editorial assistant for a magazine. I wasn't even an editorial assistant at that time. I was just a kind of a run-of-the-mill kind of proofreader. I was a fact checker. That's all I did. And what happened was I did such a good job of being a fact checker that there was a woman, who was waiting around as a receptionist to become an editorial assistant. Well, she had a relationship, and when I say relationship, I mean professional, not a personal relationship, with the editor. Well, the editor got canned, and she got fed up because the editor was her into being an editorial assistant, and she left. Well, they looked around, and they said, well, who's going to be the editorial assistant? And I had no designs on being an editorial assistant. I was just, I had a part-time job as a fact checker. And they said, hey, how about you? I'm like, well, okay, I'll do it. What the hell? So then I became an editorial assistant, and all of a sudden, all these doors opened up to me. So I guess what I'm sharing with you is to stay put until Saturn moves across your sun and across your Pluto, because if indeed the job doesn't leave you, then there could be some very interesting opportunities that would open for you. When Saturn gets to 13 degrees, it's going to be trining your natal Jupiter in Pisces. And that's when, my dear, that's when opportunity smiles upon you. And that's when you get to really go a lot deeper and a lot further than you think you would have gone, say, a year ago. In terms of what you are good at, you've got some, great healing capacity with Sun, Pluto, Venus, all conjunct in Scorpio. You're intense. You don't shy away from intensity, and all those planets pretty much trine Jupiter and Pisces. So you have the capacity to be emotionally regenerative. In most instances, when people have the Sun-Pluto conjunction, they're terrific healers. And at that point, you're like, well, where do you want to take your healing energy? For some people, they are really into, the explicit forms of healing, Qigong, acupuncture, massage, stuff like that. They really get into it hands-on. Other people, healing becomes a different experience. Maybe it's artistic, healing through art, healing through music, healing through sound, or maybe it's healing through working with people's emotions. With Pluto conjunct your sun, you're a natural psychologist. Your friends probably come to you and ask you all the time, hey, what do you think about this? What's going on with this? You've got Mercury and Scorpio. You're incredibly investigative. You understand human nature quite well. When we look at your Mercury, it's right there at the midheaven. It's conjunct your midheaven, which is at 0 degrees Sagittarius. But there's your Mercury, 28 degrees, conjunct your midheaven. You're a natural psychologist, therapist, investigator. If I were you, that's where I'd put my time and energy. And sometimes therapists and investigators take different, wear different hats. Like you can be a researcher and investigator with the financial system, or you can be a researcher and investigator or a therapist with people at a very deep level. You've got to use that scorpionic energy. And the thing, too, is that it's all up in the 9th house, so you've got some innate relationship with law as well. So anything related to law, anything that can be kind of an advocacy for people in the realm of law, again, you'd be a total natural, total fit with. But everything has to start with this whole notion of healing and transformation, because that is who you are. You are an agent of transformation, and anything, anything that you can build out from that place, that's on you. The other thing, or that's what you can decide to do. The other thing too is the 9th house rules publishing. So writing, journalism, and publishing is also another field you'd be very, very good at, and not just good at, but also anything that you touch, you're going to reform. You're going to change, because that's who you are. You're a natural reformer. And the only thing you got to watch out for is that rebellious streak with your sun square your Pluto, and Mars square Sun, and Mars square Pluto. If you can deal with that rebellious streak and be an agent of change proactively versus reactively, then you've really got something cooking.
That's big. Thank you. And I looked at my own chart, but sometimes you need other people to take a look at it for you and see what they see from their perspective.
It's true. Everybody sees something a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for calling in, and we'll see you around here sometime.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye, Michelle.
Bye.
All right. Let's get a quick shout-out to Gussie. We'll say hello. We'll probably talk a little bit offline. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. This is Robert Phoenix. I've been your host and your navigator. And I want to thank William Stickevers, who has graced us with his presence today. I have a blog, robertphoenix.com. You can watch me. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm Robert Phoenix on Facebook. And on Friday, we're jumping into a new, well, not a new show. We're jumping into my other show, which is the Friday Forecast. And I'm going to have George Norrie, the amazing George Norrie, on with me on Friday, the golden voice of late night radio. And I'm also going to have Giorgio Tsoukalos on the show. Gussie split. I was going to talk to her. Giorgio Tsoukalos on the show as well. And he is the star of Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens, the show on, I guess it's Discovery Channel or History Channel. But he'll be on the show as well. Don't miss the show. It's going to be a great show. All right. Thanks, everybody, for calling in. And be careful with the Mercury Retrograde. Sometimes, again, the best course of action is to do nothing. This is Robert Phoenix, and you've been navigating the astrological matrix with me. Adios, amigos.
In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend, almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sana Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God's flame. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, exceeding with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my dear, Gautama and Son of Kumara.